make my remarks, I just want to remind reporters to please mute. So as always, we also want to reinforce Ali's gratitude for you, our reporters and media, as we continue to rely on you to provide important information to our families. I'd like to also recognize and thank Melinda Henritz, the Executive Director of Foundation for Madison Public Schools, who has joined us today. We are grateful for the continued amazing support of the foundation. We are continuing to implement plans for graduation, the plans that we shared with you last week. Schools are making special arrangements for students to pick up caps and gowns and send in pictures. Again, we are so grateful for WISC TV for their generous work with MMSD. And I want to give a special thanks to Chief of High Schools, Mike Hernandez, the high school principals, and the high school staff who are working so hard to make this a special time for our seniors. We've also been busy with planning some other end of the year activities, such as systems for students and families to drop off school issued items and pick up items from students' lockers and desks. We are closely following public health guidelines for these activities, and there are many details still being worked out that will be communicated with families and schools shortly. I want you to know that we're trying to follow the original school calendar as much as possible. The final day of school for elementary and middle school students remains June 10th, the same as noted on the original school calendar. Normally, high school students would be taking final exams the last week of school, and their final day of instruction would be June 3rd. So for high school students only, this year, their final day of instruction remains June 3rd. And for that week that they would normally be having finals, we have repurposed that week so that staff can engage students in activities to ensure that they have completed everything necessary to graduate. We are also finalizing plans for summer school. Summer school will be virtual for grades 3 through 12, and we have created developmentally appropriate programs for elementary, middle, and high school students. And before I turn it over to our staff to share more details on summer school, I also want to address our work on planning for reopening school this fall. We have a team dedicated to researching this issue, collaborating with other school districts and state officials to help develop guidance that will drive many of our decisions related to fall school planning. As you can imagine, this is a very complex undertaking, as has everything been during COVID-19. But a part of this work will be gathering feedback from students, families, and staff on their experience with virtual learning. This will inform our decision-making as we plan for the fall. We are considering a variety of configurations, and we are doing our best to make concrete plans and timelines for school this fall. However, due to the nature of COVID-19, much of our timeline for planning is actually affected by external factors, many that are beyond our control. We may even see scenarios where we go in and out of in-person and virtual learning. Therefore, our plans will need to be very flexible, giving us the ability to adapt to either environment in a very short period of time. There is, however, one component to our planning for reopening schools this fall where there is absolutely no flexibility, and I do want to stress that. Our decisions will be grounded in health and safety for our students, staff, and families. We will work closely with the Public Health Department and DPI to make sure that we're following health and safety guidelines for instruction in schools. So with that, I would like to turn it over to our Chief of Teaching and Learning and her team to talk about summer school. Lisa?
Thank you, Jane. And thank you to the reporters in the room who are partnering with us in our work to support children and families as we move through the COVID-19 situation that we all find ourselves in. So we're here to talk to you a little bit about our summer school programming that will again anchor our summer engagement strategy. And we're excited to share our plans with you today, knowing that many students and families have been eagerly awaiting all of this information. So our dates of summer school have not changed. They will continue to be June 22nd to July 31st for elementary and middle school, with high school ending on July 30th. Our goal is to be able to provide a safe environment in order to meet the needs of our students during summer programming. Outlooks and information about COVID-19, as you know, change daily, and we have been consulting with MMSD leadership, MSCR, and the Department of Public Instruction. So we will be providing a fully virtual summer school experience for students in grades 3 through 12. We're supporting the 5th to 6th grade transition and also the 8th to 9th grade important transition. In support of our summer school mission, our program will be focused on high quality instruction that is targeted to accelerate growth in key skills, credit recovery, credit replacement, and initial credit courses in a virtual format for 6 weeks. We want to thank our families and our staff for continued patience during our challenging time, figuring out how to put this all together. We're really excited to offer this virtual learning opportunity. We know that virtual learning offers benefits, including additional opportunities for learning, flexible scheduling, and completing only the content needed for recovery, and potentially allowing students to take additional courses at the secondary level if they finish a course early. So in summary, our MMSD summer school will again be delivered virtually for grades 3 through 12. 3rd through 8th grade virtual summer school will focus on literacy and math. 9th through 12th grade virtual summer school will focus on credit recovery for students who need to graduate under our 15 credit graduation policy, credit replacement to improve grades in courses taken prior to the COVID closures, and limited first-time credit opportunities in physical education, health, and personal finance. And again, we're going to be focusing specifically on those important transitions for students moving from 5th to 6th and 8th to 9th. We will provide a universal 4K through 4th grade strategy for students who had enrolled in summer school. These universal supports include free read-ups and books and bags of support for students related to literacy, free access to Lexia, which is a literacy online program that students are familiar with, free access to a math-free platform for students in 4K through 4, and also free access to the Ready Rosie program for our 4K students that they're currently using. So that is an overall overview of our summer school program, and I would ask that Nicole Schaefer, our summer school director, be available for any questions or any other thoughts that folks might have during the press conference.
Thank you, Lisa. And now I'd like to turn to our Chief of Middle Schools, who will share about our Professional Development Day that we had this past Wednesday. Tremaine?
Hi, good afternoon all. Thank you, Dr. Belmore, for the opportunity, and thank you for the extended Madison community and media for your partnership today. We are very proud and thankful of the Professional Development Day that occurred on Wednesday, May 13th. We found that the information was very beneficial in enhancing the skill sets of our staff and uplifting the voices of our students and parents as we learn more and more about their experiences with virtual learning. Definitely want to lift up both the qualitative and quantitative data that we have received from our exit slips and exit surveys, which indicated that our staff truly found value in the experience and that would enhance their skill sets moving forward. We also want to extend gratitude to the leaders and staff who work collaboratively in the design of the Professional Development Day. understanding that without collaboration, these days are not as beneficial, and really want to be thankful to our partnership with MTI. MTI provided guidance on how to better inform staff and better inform the collaborative process. And I think that resulted in a very positive experience, which our data currently supports. So I want to get to the day itself. As you know, we're lift up and are grounded in our equity work. MMSD has moved far past a equity statement and has taken an equity stance. And with that stance, we utilize the talents of our student, staff, and support team, as well as our professional leadership and learning development team, to create a module which was entitled Wellness and Racial Healing, which was featuring Dr. Bettina Love. As you might remember, Dr. Bettina Love was our speaker to begin the year and really set the foundation and help guide our work for a year around our deep equity work. We continued that work in our new scenario, understanding that it is our priority and commitment to continue to dismantle any systems that contribute to disproportionalities. And our work in this virtual learning setting and beyond will continue to uplift those priorities. With the work, the school leadership and staff development learned a tremendous amount from our communities as far as what is more engaging and what may not be so engaging for our students. And we utilize that feedback to develop today and to change adjust some of our teaching practices and platform. We also had time for staff to actually have time to check in with themselves. We find that staff are most effective when they have time to team and collaborate together. So both from a social emotional support of each other is that, we're human with humanistic skill sets, and we need and want to support each other. So beyond the uplifting of best practice, it was really an opportunity for staff to get back together again and just check in on each other and check in on their wellness, while still uplifting the practices that will lead to student engagement. Our schools thoughtfully integrated wellness and fitness into the PD day, where we had everything from fitness activities to mindfulness activities, understanding that it is a priority of MMSD to practice self-care, especially given the current circumstances of the pandemic, that priority was uplifted more than ever. So we were thankful for the thoughtfulness and making sure that we're thinking about staff and students in their whole, in a holistic manner, and understanding that the professional development has to be grounded as well in the supports of mindfulness and wellness. Our schools were able to take an opportunity to check in on students, or just go deeper in our work on checking in on students who may not have been as engaged as we would like, to really seek out and support those students and find out how we get them re-engaged in our process. So the part of the day was utilized to re-engage with some of those families and to make sure that we are creating an experience that is beneficial for those. And we really want everyone to benefit from the virtual process. So in closing, I just wanted to say we will use the information from the professional learning day to inform our continued professional learning moving forward. Again, we want to uplift the collaboration that went into the development, and want to thank our staff for their partnership, MTI for their partnership, and our leaders for guiding this process. I'll be available for additional questions later on in during the media interview process, but I just want to thank you for your partnership.
Thank you, Tremaine. And going back to talking about summer programming, I want to ask our MSCR director, our Madison School Community Recreation Director, to share what summer programming is going to look like with MSCR. So Janet, are you here?
I am.
Great.
Thank you, Dr. Belmore, and good afternoon, everyone. MSCR is a proud provider of community recreation and after-school programs for all ages. Our staff thrives on being in the community with all of you. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we will not be able to offer our typical summer programming schedule. At this time, we have to come to the difficult decision to cancel all of our summer programs and issue full refunds to our participants that previously registered. With that being said, sorry about that. Need to start my video. With that being said, we are excited to announce what our summer will look like. MSCR will continue to provide high-value virtual programming in many of our traditional program areas, including fitness and art classes, outdoor adventure activities, and sports instruction, to name a few. In addition, our staff is working on a variety of new innovative virtual programs we're excited to offer this summer. We also hope to launch a limited schedule of in-person programs that can be held outdoors and in line with public health guidelines in July and August. We'll have more information about that available in mid-June. At this time, however, we are focused wholeheartedly on providing what the community needs most of us right now: high quality, safe childcare programs for our elementary school age students. While we can't provide our typical summer recreation programs, we will be offering smaller childcare programs in 15 to 20 of our elementary schools for up to 600 students. These childcare programs will be geared towards students entering grades 2 through 5 in the fall. And we will prioritize essential workers and those students who are enrolled in summer school, allowing us to ensure greater access to the internet and greater success in our summer school programs. MSCR staff will not be teaching summer school, but we will be providing support in an environment where children can work on their virtual summer school. At the secondary level, we have decided to continue our after-school academic enrichment programming model throughout the summer. It has been very successful in keeping our middle and high school students engaged and connected since the middle of March. MSCR staff will continue to provide enrichment activities such as cooking classes and book clubs virtually, as well as providing mentorship and ongoing connections with our middle and high school students throughout the summer. This summer will certainly look different for MSCR, but we are confident that we are serving the community to meet the areas of most need at this time. I'd just like to end by thanking our loyal participants for their ongoing support of MSCR and our dedicated full and part-time staff for everything they're doing to keep our participants engaged virtually. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet, for your important work this year and the work of your staff. I know how much our community really appreciates the opportunities that Madison School Community Recreation offers to our students, our youth, and our adults. And it's a very important part of what makes Madison a vibrant, healthy city for families. So thank you, and thank you for coming on today. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim to moderate the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Belmore. We're going to start with Scott Gerard with the Cap Times.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you all being here to answer questions today. I was wondering, you mentioned that you have a team working on the reopening discussions for the fall and what that could look like. I was wondering if that team or any other staff members had any response to the CDC guidelines that came out yesterday related to reopening schools and recommendations to that end.
I am going to turn it over to Jay Felt. I think that we have been looking at that. I'm not sure what happened, what transpired today with that.
Yeah, thank you, Jane, and thank you, Scott. I think that's a great question. Certainly the CDC guidelines give us a bit of a roadmap, but we also know that things are changing pretty quickly. And we certainly know that what's projected now in terms of protocol when schools reopen may be time we get there. And back to Jane's original comments, we're literally preparing for any potential scenario when we reopen, which could be a combination of in-person, virtual, or blended together. In particular, recognizing their guidance for screening students and employees upon arrival would certainly be a heavy lift but it's certainly something that we can plan for. Along with that, we've begun conversations about PPE available to staff and students if need be, and then a whole variety of other adjustments we could make given density, social distancing within buildings, et cetera. So nothing specific at this point, but we're certainly looking at CDC, also working with Department of Health Services here in Wisconsin and our local public health, Madison and Dane County guidelines. And those three will sort of shape what it is that we ultimately land on in terms of a plan. But at this point, we're preparing for pretty much everything.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you very much. So with summer school being structured the way that it's going to be structured, I was wondering how that's affecting summer school staffing and how full that, whether all of those who applied for positions will be taking positions, or how you'll kind of handle staffing for these classes over the summer.
We had a pretty tight communication plan for staffing, and I'm not sure who would want to take that question, if it would be Deirdre or Lisa.
I'm happy to take that question, Jane. Thank you. So we, as Jane said, we had a tight communication plan around employees supporting summer school. And because we have switched to the virtual platform, obviously the number of staff that we need for summer school has shifted. So there will be employees who anticipated being a part of summer school that will no longer be working the summer school because of the transition to the virtual platform.
Thank you. Appreciate that. The only other question I have is how many applicants have there been to the superintendent position so far, and if there's any timeline update on that process?
So I would say we have applicants. I don't know that we have a particular number yet. And what was the second part of your question, Scott?
Just if there was an update on the timeline for that process at all.
The application process closes at the end of May, and the timeline will move forward from that point.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Logan with the Wisconsin State Journal.
Hi, thanks again for holding this press conference. It's extremely helpful. So I just want to start on summer school. I'm curious as to how many students you expect will attend summer school this year and how that would compare to a typical summer.
So I'm going to turn that one to Nicole with the more specific details about enrollment.
Hi there. In terms of enrollment, we have about 3,000 students currently enrolled, and knowing that those 3,000 students enrolled in a face-to-face model, we are anticipating, and we are going back to our families via a communication that went out earlier today, asking them to recommit and essentially accept or decline their current enrollment in summer school, knowing that we've transitioned or are transitioning to a virtual learning environment. And we are anticipating that overall, our enrollment will be less than what it has been in the past, in large part just because of our offerings have decreased. We are not offering enrichment this year, and we are solely focused in elementary and middle on math and English language arts.
Thank you. Sorry, just to clarify, that was 3,000 students who were enrolled before, or who enrolled under the assumption it was going to be face-to-face?
Correct.
Correct, and that does not include all of our high school enrollment, given that they are in the process of enrolling and can up until the end of school or till the end of our regular school year, based on where their needs are.
Being that it is going to be a virtual environment and it sounds like enrollment will be less, is there an estimate on how that will affect the district's finances, particularly when it comes to the state equalization aid?
I'm going to bring Kelly in on this one. It's been on our minds for sure.
Hi, Logan. Absolutely. This is a key part of the work. And we've been working very closely with DPI. Just this week, DPI released the guidance we've been kind of waiting for to make sure we build our program around a sustainable model. We recently received kind of the flexibility we needed to ensure that we can put together a schedule that we can track attendance and minutes, which is a key part of that overall formula that you're referring to from the state for revenue. So we're feeling pretty confident at this point that we have the right plan in place that matches the revenue structure at the state. So hopefully it will turn out to be a little more similar to as we expected in the past. And so that including the reductions that we had to make as it relates to staffing in order to staff the program allowed, it should balance as expected.
Thank you, Kelly.
And then just one more question on summer school about the logistics. Will there be a daily time requirement for students to engage similar to how virtual school is happening now?
Nicole, you can take that.
Sure. Yes, and it will vary based on the grade level, but we are going to expect that kids, and we believe that in order to achieve kind of the goals that we are set forth for ourselves and with our students and families, for them to really make progress and to do the high level of learning that we'd like to see, and we believe that they will need to engage in some synchronous learning on a regular basis, and that may be 2 to 3 times a week at least.
And that is face-to-face at some point. So they will be doing both.
And then I just have one final question. I'm curious what the most recent attendance figures have been.
I'm going to bring Jay back in on that, as he's been kind of keeping track of that.
Yeah, thank you, Logan. So we continue to use attendance once a week, primarily as a way of just engaging, staying in touch, maintaining relationships, and making sure that every student and family are connected with the resources that they may need. So for the week of May 4th, which is the data from last week, the 5th week of virtual learning, we were in touch with 93.6% of our students, which is up just a tenth over the week of April 27th, which is 93.5. And overall, our attendance rate was down just slightly. Again, our secondary students we have a lot of competition for their attention these days, especially with the weather getting a little nicer outside. And it's pretty typical for us to see a slight dip in attendance, especially once we hit the month of May. Overall, we were at 85.2, we were at 85.2 for week 4, and then we dropped to 82, so a percentage decline. But these numbers are holding where we were hoping that they would stay, especially now that we're within a few weeks of the end of the school year.
All right, thank you. Those are all the questions I had.
Thank you, Logan. We'll bring in Marshall.
Hey, everybody. This is Marshall Behringer with UW Health. We're an anchor partner in Pathways and have been committed to providing and participating in experiential learning efforts that the district has been engaged in to help kids be college, career, and community ready. I know that this is maybe a longer term question than just this summer, so I totally appreciate that you may not have all the answers here. Just curious if you could comment on the district's thinking about longer term, what all of this means for experiential learning, whether that's kids going out and doing internships in the community or project-based learning, any career and technical education classes that require very hands-on engagement with equipment in very specific spaces. And again, I appreciate that you may not really know how to approach that yet, but I just wanted to know what your most current thinking was on that.
Thank you, Marshall. So I will just say a few things here, and then I'll ask Cindy if she can speak more specifically to Pathways and project-based learning. But this shift is going to be a big shift for both our school district and our community. And so we fully expect that there are new ways of working that will be coming in the fall. hopefully building on some old ways, but maybe also being very different than what has been happening in the past. So one of the things that we're looking at is accelerated learning for all students, and our curriculum is really, and instruction is really going to reflect that. So that's a different kind of concept, and looking at how we maybe will move forward with all of our students. But I think that incorporating experiential and project-based learning will be an important part of that. Cindy?
Yeah, hey Marshall, thank you for the question. And I don't know that I have a clear answer, but I can tell you a few of the things that we're working on and thinking about. As early as this summer, we are looking at this as an opportunity to see how we might even be able to provide more opportunities and access to some of our experiential learning by being in the virtual world, right? The virtual world does afford us to not be contained to schedules in the same way, numbers of students. So we have been really thinking about that and working with our partners across the country as everyone's kind of grappling with how do you provide experiential learning? What does that look like? What do internships look like in the virtual world? We've also been working not only closely with you, but really been talking to the city and thinking about different ways if students can't have actual jobs in the summer and face-to-face, what could we provide through the virtual world and still have them earn credit and potential pay for that? So we've been trying to plan for that in the summer. As far as the future goes, as Jay and Jane both said, we're kind of planning for 3 different scenarios. And what I would say is some of the scenarios are not as conducive for some of our current coursework. So some of our CTE classes, some of our arts classes where there's more of a lab space or a setting that really requires hands-on. So we are working with our teams, and we're going to start really doing some of that planning to think about what shifts we need to make for the fall and what can stay the same regardless of what setting we are in. To your point around project-based learning, I mean, this also is an opportunity for us to think really innovatively and how could we think about some of the kind of guiding principles or fundamentals around project-based learning and think more about interdisciplinary as well in this virtual world, but we're still in real early stages. And I would say this is the time when we're leaning on everyone across the nation and our partners to help us think through this, as everyone, I think, is grappling with this.
Thank you, Cindy.
Cool.
And thank you for bringing that up, Marshall.
All right, next up is Amy Reed with News 3.
Hey there, thanks again for you guys holding this. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
So I was wondering how many, is that 3,000 students enrolled in just like summer learning programs? And if that's so, how many were enrolled in the MSCR programming for the summer that will now have to be refunded?
So there's 2 programming kind of things, and Nicole, you can come on, and Janet, you might want to too. So there's summer school, which is instructional summer school, virtual learning, which will be taught by a certified teacher, as we have always had summer school. And then there's summer programming from MSCR, which is more, has been traditionally more recreational. So that 3,000 students are the students who enrolled in summer school for virtual learning. Some of them may cross over and also be engaged in MSCR activities, but that 3,000 is basically summer school enrollment. Janet or Nicole, is that accurate?
Yeah, Jane, what you were saying, that 3,000 students were prior to our announcement of virtual learning. Those are
Right.
all of the families and kids that have signed up, grades 3 through 7. And many of them overlap with the recreational programming that occurs in the afternoon. So there's a little bit of both.
Janet, do you have anything to add to that?
I would just say that MSCR traditionally does after summer school programming for both elementary and middle school students through our SHREC and Youth Resource Center programs. Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting about this video. So typically we would serve close to 2,500 elementary students in that after summer school SHREC program, and another several hundred in our youth resource centers.
How will families be able to access the virtual programs then for MSCR, I mean?
Mm-hmm. So we have all of our virtual programs on the MSCR website at mscr.org. We also have a YouTube channel with some videos, and they can, a lot of our programs are always also accessible on Facebook.
Okay, so are those going to be the virtual ones? Are those going to be free of charge then for people to be able to use?
All of our virtual programming right now is free of charge. Some of the newer programming that we're working on will have some nominal fees associated with them, like we're planning virtual summer camps, and there might be some supplies that need to be sent out to families that utilize that program. And so there will be some nominal fees associated with that. But of course, as always, MSCR provides fee waivers for those families that aren't able to pay.
All right, thank you so much. That was all I had about MSCR, but I was also wondering, what is the district's plan as we're going into the summer, as we're looking toward the fall, if a student or teacher or other staff member comes down with COVID-19?
I'm going to turn that over to Sally Zerble-Danish.
Hi, this is Sally. We are really working closely with Public Health Madison and Dane County at this time to figure out what that is going to look like. We still don't have really clear guidance, and we are kind of working with them to see what that will look like. As we've mentioned, there's several different scenarios, and those three in particular. And as we learn more, we'll develop our guidelines and protocols around that. So there's still more to come on that. We're anxious to figure that out as well.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in my opening comments, there could be scenarios where some schools need to stop programming for a period of time. Others may not, and we're just not sure what that's going to look like.
So what's your message to parents as they're sticking with you guys as you're still trying to figure it out too?
Give us the grace and patience. We want them to know that we are working hard to figure out the best ways possible to deliver instruction and keep everybody safe at the same time. And I would ask them to think about how they can provide information to us. We will be asking our families and our students about their virtual learning experience. And we've already heard lots of good information from parents and want to hear more as we prepare over the summer, because if you recall, we had hardly any notice about closing schools. We were making the decision to close schools before the governor made his decision. And so we ended up kind of being there at the same time, but we did not really have an opportunity to do long-term planning for what that would look like. So we have done a really good job, I think, of getting the virtual learning online. We're learning things every day about how to do this better. So I would just ask that parents keep following our family news. And that families stay engaged that way over the summer. We're going to provide lots of information for them as we move along. So I would just say, it's pretty much like everything else in the world right now. We can't make a decision about public education and outside of looking at health and everything else that's happening in our community and our world. So I guess patience and grace are the two things that I would ask of them, and to stay in communication via our family newsletters and our websites, and certainly talking with teachers and principals as long as school is in, and then during summer school as well.
Right. I don't envy your guys' role that you do have to make these decisions. I count my lucky stars every day that I'm not in a position like that. So how did you decide to continue the childcare in person, but moving summer school to virtual?
Well, that was a careful consideration. We felt like the guidance that we've been under, and as we continue, allowed childcare under certain very strict kind of parameters, and that we could meet those parameters with a small group of students during the summer that kind of melded the idea that those students would receive their virtual programming from their certified teacher within a childcare setting. And one of the things that we think that will happen from this is we will learn a lot about how do you transport kids, how do you keep them socially distanced. They're going to be in small groups. You know, what does that look like in schools? And so we think we'll learn a lot from that, as well as provide children at elementary level some needed support in terms of continuing with virtual learning. So basically, those were some of the things that we worked through with public health and the Department of Children and Families and the Department of Public Instruction. Janet, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you pretty much covered it, but I would just add that as things open up and more individuals return to work, the need for childcare in the community is continuing to grow. So we're excited about being able to serve that need.
Thank you, Janet.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Next is Savannah with Spectrum News 1.
Hi, everybody. Thanks as always for being here and doing this. About the MSCR childcare programs, is there a timeline on that when it could start?
Those programs will be in line with the summer school dates. So they will operate from June 22nd through July 31st.
And then overall, just what do you hope that students are getting out of their virtual learning summer school?
Well, I'll turn that back to Nicole. We are very intentionally focusing on literacy and math, and within that, certainly specific targets for kids.
Yeah, and I would add to that depending upon their grade level, right? So certainly at the elementary grade levels 3 and 4, it's really looking at some of their skills, maintaining those skills. We know that since school closures and the loss of face-to-face instruction, that we have some missing instructional time. Try to recoup. So that will be critical for our younger grades. And then as we move up the grade bands, I think what we're really looking at is continuing to build relationships, checking in with kids, serving a lot of their needs just beyond academics. And then in high school, really supporting them in terms of graduation requirements and getting them ready for the next step in their venture of life.
And certainly credit recovery at the high school level as well, and maybe additional credits.
That's all I've got. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. We'll turn to Emily with 27 News. Emily? Are there any other reporters in the room that want to have any follow-up questions? All right, that wraps it up. Jane?
Great. Well, thank you all again for coming. Ali, thank you for being here with us. And thank you for your continued support. And we will be having another press conference at a later date that Tim will be inviting you all to as well. So thank you, MMSD staff and Melinda for joining us, and MSCR, Janet. Goodbye.